Hello and welcome to our first online lecture. This is Class 21, Lecture 1. We are picking the story up with Marcus Tullius Cicero, the famous Roman consul, about whom we have been learning for a while, and who is one of the best known individuals from antiquity, largely due to the fact that he has left behind significant amounts of writing, whether those are legal cases, philosophical works, and other writings that he engaged in during his life. For today's class, you will need two things. First, your Cicero book, and secondly, what is called Cicero Worksheet 2, which you should be able to find on Blackboard related to class number 21. To start, let's get going with Cicero in the year 63 BCE. This is probably the most important year in Cicero's life. This is the year he was elected consul and faced the conspiracy of his political enemy Catiline in the Senate. Some of the decisions that he made in this crisis actually haunted him for the rest of his life and led to his exile later on. So let's think first of all about Cicero being elected consul. We know from some of the earlier texts we have read that elections in Rome could be quite corrupt. In the case of the year 63, it's very clear that there were others who were interested in investing money in getting the right candidate into power. As we discussed many times, every single young Roman man dreamt about becoming a consul one day and then accomplishing some major military feat, earning a triumph, and thereby becoming eternally famous. So becoming a consul was a big deal. In the year in which Cicero was running for consul, there were some others who were very interested in becoming consul, so he was by far not the only one up for this position. Among them was Catiline, and what you see on the slide here is actually an election cup that has Catiline's name scratched into it, which is exactly how people would be able to remember his name and know to vote for him during the elections. We also have some texts left behind for us by Cicero, in which he talked about or tried to record the speeches he has given when he was a candidate for the consulship. So this is the first question that we are going to think about all together, and this takes you on the handout to the question that references page 56. And in your book, in the Cicero book, I would also like you to open page 56. So the first speech here from Cicero's Agrarian Law talks about his declaration that he will be a popularis consul. Now, we have been learning about being a popularis leader for some time, and we have noticed that this is something that has been represented by famous individuals such as the Gracchi brothers or Marius, and often included the kind of agenda in which people supported causes of the people, often at a cost to the traditional senatorial leadership and their rights and financial benefits. So if you look at the text here, he says a few lines down or on the slide, "How can I not be popularis, citizens, when I see all these things, peace abroad, the liberty proper to your race and name, tranquility at home, in a word, all the things which are dear and precious to you, assigned to the guardianship of my consulship? Citizens, you must not reckon a promulgation of free handouts as something popularis and desirable. It can create a fine impression in a speech but in reality can achieve absolutely nothing except to bankrupt the treasury. And you must not reckon those who are promising lands to the Roman people to be popularis. Either they are plotting some secret scheme or they are putting on a fine show, creating false and specious optimism." So this is an interesting little description, and we should start observing the kind of rhetorical moves Cicero might make in order to look like something different from maybe what he is really doing. So his argument is that he is a popularis. But what is the evidence? Let's see. Peace abroad. Okay. Liberty, tranquility at home. That's sort of going more for just let's leave things the way they are, status quo. But then the second sentence of this second passage here says, you must not reckon a promulgation of free handouts as something popularis and desirable. Now, this clearly references, and there is a footnote in your textbook about this, is what it's suggesting is that if somebody offers you discounted or free food, which is a pretty traditional popularis action ever since Gaius Gracchus, that is not what you should be really wishing for. Now, it's excellent for Cicero, who has about 12 villas that we know about. He's an incredibly rich man at this point in his life. It's easy for him to say, oh, free food is a bad thing. But he not only says that, but he says, well, people who think that is what popularis is, they are wrong. Because I, Cicero, know what's best for the people, and that is not free food and other free gifts. Instead, all it will do is to bankrupt the treasury. Similarly, he says, promising lands to Roman people, understood who do not have land at this time, he says, is not a popularis action. Now, again, for Cicero, who has a lot of land that might be very undesirable, probably he might even be concerned about that somebody might take his land, right? So that would be extremely concerning, although that is not especially likely, but it is possible. But he says that's just some fake optimism, and that is just a show, it's not for real. So essentially, again, we see him taking something that traditionally is a popularis promise, and he says that is not popularis. So rhetorically speaking, what he is really doing is suggesting that many things which popularis politicians promise to their electors are in fact not really benefiting the people. So that is something for us to keep in mind for this period of Roman history, is that individuals might say things that actually twist the meaning of those words in a way that benefits their own argument. Cicero does not want to run as an optimate candidate, but nevertheless, when he says he is popularis, we have to take that with a grain of salt. He wants to say he is popularis, but in the process, he redefines what that term means. Now, there is one more thing which gives us a sense of Cicero's political position, and that is the case of Rabirius, which is discussed on page 57 of your book and also on this slide. Now, this is a famous case that goes back a long time in history to the year 100 BCE, when the Senate passed one of those final decrees, which you might recall essentially declares a state of emergency and allows the Romans to declare people enemies of the state and not giving people the full right to a trial and be judged by jurors, but instead, in the state of emergency, they can be killed simply on the spot. So this is what happened in the year 100 BCE, when the tribune Saturninus was the one who was declared such an enemy and who was killed, among others, by this guy, Rabirius, who is the important one for us in this story. So now, if it's a state of emergency and somebody is declared an enemy, legally, you could kind of argue that any average person has the right to go and kill that person. After all, they are the enemy of the state. However, in the year 63, Rabirius was charged with high treason by the popularis Caesar. This makes sense if you are truly popularis. Why is that so? Because you actually don't like that kind of political move, especially if it's against someone who is sharing your political views. So this is what Cicero had to say on this matter. Rabirius has been brought to court on a capital charge, not because he is guilty of some offense, ... Well, that suggests that, Cicero doesn't agree that Rabirius should be charged. Now let's see why that is so. He says, the aim is to remove from the Republic that crucial source of help to our sovereignty and our empire, which has been handed down to us by our forefathers, so that hereafter no resolution of the Senate, no executive power of the consuls, no unanimity of the boni, the good people, shall be strong enough to confront the ruin and the destruction of the state. In other words, what is Cicero supporting here? Well, he is supporting the right of the Senate to declare such a state of emergency, to pass a final decree in case the state is in some kind of crisis. This will be helpful for us to keep in mind as we move into our second lecture for lesson 21.